Double Biology, Unit 1, hired here for the 21st of February 24. So the first question, wheat is grown in Ireland as a food source. The photograph shows a wheat field. The statement gives information about some feeding relationships in a wheat field. Aphids feed on wheat, spiders, ladybirds and beetles feed on aphids. Spiders also feed on ladybirds, wasps feed on spiders, ladybirds, beetles and aphids. Use the statements above to complete a food web. So in this one you are just simply writing into your food web from that text of what your answer is going to be. So we start off with wheat at the bottom, so we know who feeds on the wheat is aphids. So aphids are going to go up here. Then it told us that spiders, ladybirds and beetles feed on aphids. So we've already got beetles here, so we know what to put that in. But we know ladybirds and spiders do it, but how do we know if that goes in here or it goes in the other box? So just read on. So spiders to say also feed on ladybirds. So we're going to have to automatically know that spiders then would go in here and ladybirds would go into this box as the spiders feed on ladybirds. The next one then it tells us is that wasps feed on spiders, ladybirds, beetles and aphids. So we're going to have wasps up here at the top, but we're also then going to need include ours because you can't have it just sitting there. So no R going toward it because that doesn't show energy transfer. So it tells us that wasps feed on spiders, they also feed on ladybirds and they feed on beetles, but they also feed on aphids, so we need an R going up here. Next one, name the energy source for the food web. It's always going to be sun or sunlight. What does ours represent in the food web? Energy flow or energy transfer. Use the food web to name an organism that's feeding on more than one trophic level. So remember, trophic levels just go like order like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. We could also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could also have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, and 3. Now the other thing as well is I forgot to put an arrow in here. So we have other spiders, ladybirds, and beetles feeding aphids. So we also need an arrow in here as well. So making sure you're reading back through it and just double checking your answers. So if we look at this here, we're going to see which one has the same trophic level each time. Alright, so if we're going to look through here, we have got spiders and wasps, both feed at 4 and 3. Okay, so use the food web to name an organism that feeds on more than one trophic level. We could have said spiders or wasps. An Asian hornet is a predator for wasps, beetles and spiders. It was first found in Ireland in 2021. Describe and explain the effect the Asian hornet could have on the population of ladybirds in the food web. Well, do the Asian hornets eat ladybirds? No, so there's going to be more ladybirds. Because ladybirds, remember, are eaten by spiders, who are eaten by wasps, and if the Asian hornets are eating the wasps, then they're removing their predators, okay? So we can put in here for an explanation, there's less predators off the ladybird. You can put in there spiders and wasps, you want to be more specific. Another point we could put in here as well is that there's going to be more aphids as well because they're not being eaten as much either, so therefore they've got more food. Aphids can cause damage to wheat. Farmers can spray chemicals called insecticides onto the wheat to kill the aphids. Suggest an advantage to the farmer of spraying the wheat with an insecticide. You could just say always here there's going to be more yield, which means more crop. Photograph shows a plant's growth response to light. So you can see here the plant's going to grow towards the light in this case. Name this type of growth response. So this growth response is known as phototropism. And description, it grows towards the light. And explanation is that you can say light coming from one side causes a hormone auxin to be produced. Remember, it's produced in the tip. And then auxin will cause cell elongation. On the shaded side of the plant. Next question, we go on to the kidney. So name the process of maintaining water balance in the kidney. This is called osmoregulation. Anything to do with water, use the word osmosis. Name this organ system. So whenever you have your kidneys, your bladder, this is known as your excretory system. Deal parts A and B. So A is your ureter and B is your bladder. Now remember, if you look at your kidney, on the outer layer of your kidney, it's called the cortex. The next layer is called the medulla. So you find your nephrons between the cortex and medulla, and then at the very end you have your pelvis. You'll also have your renal artery and renal vein bringing in blood supplies, just checking which way they're going in and out. And then this down here is called your urethra. So scientists measure the volume of water gained and lost by 1 over 24 hours. Bar chart shows the scientist results. So either going to drinking, eating, and another process, breathing out, urination, sweat. And this was a 6-mark question one year, just to mention how water is gained and how water is lost in the body. So if you're asked to identify another way of process of getting water in, so you've got drinking, eating, and then the other one is respiration. Because remember, respiration is glucose, which is C6H12O6, plus oxygen. You've got 6 of those, goes to give me 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O. So that's where respiration comes from. To maintain water balance in the body, the total water loss in 24 hours equals the total water gain in the same 24 hours. Calculate the volume of water lost by the woman as urine. So we look up here at the top, the bar charts, and we start to work it out. So first of all, we're going to work out how much water they have gained. Okay, so you've got 1400 from drinking, you've got 800 from eating, and then as we know, X stands for respiration, and there's 200 here. So you add that up, it gives you 2400. Then what we look at next is the other two, so when your water is lost. So we only know that there's 400 breathing out, plus you've got 30, read this graph off, this will be 760. Add them both together gives me 1160. And then what I do with these two numbers is I take them away. So 2400 take away 1160 gives me 1240. So this is my answer. Because remember, what goes in must come out. Plot the values you've calculated for the volume of lost urine in the bar chart above. So now we'll have to just plot in here. So 1240. So going up, again, make sure you're using a ruler. So we are going to go in here, and that would be your bar chart completed. Now, next one. The standard to repeat the investigation with the same woman for the next day. This time she exercised vigorously for 45 minutes. Use the words in the list to describe the effect, if any, if there wasn't a volume of water lost by sweating, breathing out, or urination by the woman. So what would happen if they started to basically exercise? So sweating would increase, breathing out would also increase, but urination number will decrease because you're trying to maintain the water you have, okay? Then we go on to the next one, photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is an endothermic reaction that occurs in plants. It requires energy in the form of light. Write a balanced chemical equation for the process of photosynthesis. So we know a simple equation, be very careful, so it's a chemical equation for it, and we can see here where I start using the equations. So we need 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O, gives me C6H12O6, which is glucose, plus my 6 oxygen. Now, next one goes on, the rate of photosynthesis in a plant can be limited by environmental factors. The photograph shows the effect of increase in light intensity on the rate of photosynthesis in a plant at 15 degrees. Name one environmental factor which will limit the rate of photosynthesis between light intensities 8 and 10. So between here and here, we can see that the graph starts to level off at this point. Okay, so if the graph is leveling off, light is no longer the limiting factor. So whatever's on this axis here, on your x-axis will no longer be the limiting factor. So it could be anything else such as temperature or carbon dioxide concentration. So I'm going to write down here temperature, but remember it could also be carbon dioxide concentrations because they're your 3 limiting factors. As a light intensity of 1 Arbor units, the rate of photosynthesis is 22 Arbor units. A light intensity of 10 Arbor units, the rate of photosynthesis is 78 Arbor units. Calculate the percentage increase in the rate of photosynthesis between light intensities 1 and 10. So remember these equations here are just change over original. So you do 78 minus 22 to get your change, which is 56. And then what you need to do is divide by the original value, which was 22 at 1 Arbor units. Multiply that by 100, and that will give me an answer of 254.55. Okay, if you round it up, because remember it says 2 decimal places here. So 254.55. Draw a line in the graph to show how decreasing the temperature from 15 degrees to 10 degrees would affect the rate of photosynthesis in this plant. So remember you're decreasing it. So if you're decreasing it, what's going to happen to the line? It's going to plateau below it, okay? So you have to make sure that it's under the line that originally is there. You've got 3 marks here coming from this. So your first mark is showing that it's coming from the 0 point. So I'm going to use a marker now. It's not going to be completely accurate because obviously it's a bit more chunkier so you can see what I'm doing. But you have to start off at 0, which is here. And then remember that it has to plateau off at a lower line, okay? So you're going to continue up along here. So light is still a limiting factor, but then you're going to show it plateauing off a bit better. And it all goes off at the same line, okay? Now, next one we go on to, a student carried out an investigation into the fact of time of day on the speed of response. The student measured an individual's speed of response at the beginning and at the end of the day. To this, the student released a ruler and measured the distance fell before it was caught by an individual as shown in the diagram. The student released the ruler, the person down here is captain at the end. The results of the individual are shown in the table below, so they repeated 3 times at the beginning of the day and then at the end of the day the distance that the ruler fell. So as you can see, what happened to the distance at the end of the day, it went up, alright? So go on to the next page, for question A, calculate the average distance the ruler fell when the investigation was carried out at the end of the day. So to work out an average, remember you just add up your values, so it's going to be 20 plus 21 plus 25, which gives me a total of 66. Because you have 3 samples, you divide it by 3, which then gives you a total of 22. Now make sure you put your answer down here, 22. The faster the individual's speed of response, the shorter the distance the ruler fell before it was caught. Use the table to describe the relationship between the time of day and the speed of response. So we just mentioned that earlier. The later the day it was, the slower the response was. The slower the response was. Whereas you could even do it the other way. You could say at the beginning of the day, the faster the response was. Catching a ruler is an example of a voluntary action. So you have 2 different types of action. You've got voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary, remember, is like you take conscious thought, so you decide to do it. Whereas involuntary reflex action would be whenever you are like you just your body does it automatically, like your heart beating, breathing. So how does the speed of response to voluntary action compare to the speed of response to reflex action? Remember, reflex when you like know you've no conscious ability over it, it just happens. So the speed of voluntary, so voluntary is slower, and reflex is faster. And the reason being, remember, is because involuntary action your brain's involved. Okay, so it involves conscious thought. You could also mention there that your brain's involved, it needs thought to process. Question 6. Yeast causes bread dough to rise. The yeast produces bubbles of gas which are trapped in the dough and cause it to rise. A student investigated the effect of using different masses of yeast to make bread dough. She mixed 4 different masses of yeast and the same mass of flour for the same volume of 5% glucose solution. Each mixture was placed in a separate measuring cylinder. She kept each measuring cylinder at a temperature of 20 degrees for 45 minutes. Here's the results below. So as you can see here again, they have the mass of yeast and the volume of dough that was produced. So we can see here, start off with a 2, as the mass increased, the volume of dough also increased. So your first question says describe and explain. So describe really just what do you see. So always using these words increase and decrease, whatever one applies to. In this case you would say as the mass of yeast increased, the volume of dough also increased. Now, if you see here, I didn't just say it increased. If you just write it increased, it's not good enough. You need to make sure you specify. So making sure you're using the headings that you're given, that gives you all your information you need to do. The explanation now. If you're going to explain this here, to explain the trend, why do you think the yeast and the volume of dough rose? It told you up here at the top, they were mixed with 5% glucose solution. We know that if you add yeast and glucose together, there's a gas produced, so it shows it here as well, through a process called respiration, because remember yeast respire. So what we would say is here, the more yeast you have, there's going to be more respiration, and therefore more carbon dioxide produced, or you just say more gas produced. Between which 2 masses of yeast did the biggest increase in volume of dough occur? So you're going to have to start then working these out. So we go back up here, we can see the jump from 128, so 128, take away 47 gives me 81, so the jump here is 81. From 175 to 128, the jump here is 47. From 175 to 203, the jump is 28. So automatically you can see here it's between 2 and 4 grams. The volume of dough did not increase any further in the measuring cylinder containing 8 grams of yeast after 45 minutes. Choose 3 of the number statements below which correctly explain why the volume of dough did not increase any further in the measuring cylinder after 45 minutes. So before we start, I'm just going to talk about yeast. So when yeast get into glucose, remember the glucose could run out, could be one thing. It could be that if it's going to go on anaerobic respiration, alcohol will be reduced. But in this experiment, they didn't mention that there was no oxygen getting in. There was no mention of oil, because oil usually stops the gases getting into it as well. So we automatically know here it's not going to be anaerobic respiration, it's just going to be normal respiration. So what statements would there be? Is lactic acid produced in yeast? No, that only happens in humans and on the animal cells, so the muscle cells, so that's not going to be your answer. The next one we have is that all carbon dioxide was used up. Carbon dioxide isn't used in respiration, so that could be correct. Next one, respiration stopped. That could happen because it's all due to respiration. Number 4, no more carbon dioxide was produced. Yeah, because that's produced in respiration, aerobic. And I remember aerobic's not happening here. Number 5, no more oxygen was produced. Oxygen wasn't produced in the first place, that only happens in photosynthesis. Number 6, all the yeast was used up. Nope, because they're adding more yeast in it, it said there at the start. And then all the glucose was used up is number 7. That will be correct because you're using up all your reactions. The student repeated the investigation at 30 degrees. The volume of dough shown in the table were produced were more quicker at 30 degrees than 20 degrees. Use your knowledge of enzyme to explain why. So if you see any mention of temperature and temperature increasing, but it's still working, and it's also told us here the volume of dough increased, it means enzymes haven't denatured, so they're going to their optimum temperature. So high on this one here is that there was more kinetic energy, therefore more collisions, or just make it better, more successful collisions, therefore more enzyme substrate complexes, and then you can say then more carbon dioxide produced because remember the dough rose. And just mention here as well at 30 degrees, so they know which one you're talking about. A student repeated the investigation at 80 degrees. The volumes of dough produced were less than those in the table. Use your knowledge of enzymes to explain why. Remember, at high temperatures, the enzymes become denatured. And if you're ever asked what denatured means, it basically means the enzyme's active site changes shape. Question 7. Active uptake is a process that occurs in roots of plants. It is necessary to allow plants to absorb minerals required for growth. Name the specialised plant cells that carry out this process of active uptake. This here is known as root hair cells. Describe and explain how these specialised cells are adapted for their function. Remember the shape of them, they look like a big long finger sticking out. What we say is here is they have extended shape for increased surface area. To increase the surface area for the next mark. That's your explanation. And to make it better, you could say to increase surface area for absorbing nutrients. Complete the sentence below about active uptake by writing in the blank spaces. Active uptake in the roots of plants moves minerals from a, it's the opposite, remember, like normal, so moving from a low to from high to low, so it's the opposite. Active uptake always moves from a low concentration, so there's very little of them, to a high concentration. And the minerals that mostly get absorbed here are nitrates. And these are used to make proteins. Remember, nitrates are built up to amino acids make protein, and proteins are used for growth and repair. A decrease in oxygen in the soil, it's something the rate of active uptake, it would decrease it. Because remember, it's not able to work things, it can't respire. It can't respire, it doesn't produce energy for ATP to allow active uptake to happen because it requires energy. Question 8. Respiration occurs in all cells. Name the site of respiration in cells, the mitochondria. A student investigated respiration and photosynthesis in leaves of 3 types of plant, rice, maize and potato. Student placed the same mass of each type of leaf in 3 separate boiling tubes containing hydrogen carbonate indicator. So before we start here, already know, in normal conditions of carbon dioxide, hydrogen carbonate indicator is red. So there's just normal CO2. It's known as compensation points, so the rate of photosynthesis is equal to the rate of respiration. The next one then we have is it will go purple. If it goes purple, I always think of photosynthesis, P for purple. So the rate of photosynthesis exceeds the rate of respiration. And that's when it will go purple because there's less CO2. Because remember, photosynthesis uses up CO2. The other option we have then is yellow. Can't really see the yellow here, so I'm going to write that in a black pen. This is being when the rate of respiration exceeds the rate of photosynthesis. And then there would be more CO2 or higher levels of CO2. So automatically before you move on, I know the hydrogen carbon indicator can be used for here. Diagram shows the experiment setup. The student placed 3 of the test tubes in a dark cupboard for 12 hours. If they are put in dark cupboards, can they photosynthesize? No. When the boiling tubes were removed from the dark cupboard, the hydrogen carbon indicator was yellow. Okay, so automatically we know that they're yellow because the rate of respiration exceeds the rate of photosynthesis. In the dark, they cannot photosynthesize. Circle the number of one statement from list 1 and one from statement list 2 that applies to the leaves in the boiling tubes after 12 hours in a dark cupboard. So we already said there's only going to be only respiration happening because it can't do it in the light. So number 2 for this one for list 1, and then for list 2 we've got more carbon dioxide was given out than taken in, more carbon dioxide was taken in than given out, or the same amount of carbon dioxide was given out as taken in. We already know the setup here for yellow, there's more CO2 taken out, so it's going to be statement 6. After the boiling tubes were removed from the dark cupboard, the student set up a lamp at the same distance from each of the 3 boiling tubes and then switched the lamps on. This shows them here. A student recorded the colour of the hydrogen carbon indicator in each of the boiling tubes after 10 minutes. So the rice at the start they were all yellow, maize and potato were all yellow. After 10 minutes, the rice went red, so it was a compensation point. Maize went purple, so there was more photosynthesis, but the potato remained yellow. The rice leaf was a compensation point at 10 minutes. We already said that because the colour was red. Give the number of one statement from list 1 and one from list 2 to explain what's happened to the rice leaf at compensation point. So we know the rate of photosynthesis is going to be equal to the rate of respiration, so we're going to have statement 5 here. And then statement 2, the reason because there's the same amount of carbon dioxide taken in as given out. So look at this here, same amount of carbon dioxide was given out as taken in, so statement 8. So put your numbers down below here, 5 and 8. The hydrogen carbon indicator was purple in the boiling tube containing the maize at 10 minutes. Give the numbers of statement list 1 and one statement list 2 that explains these results. So if it's purple, remember, is it only photosynthesis happening? No. Remember, if a plant will always have to respire. If it didn't respire, it wouldn't be living, so it needs to have respiration as well. So what we're going to go here to statement 3. The rate of photosynthesis is greater than the rate of respiration. And from statement list 2 is because more carbon dioxide was taken in than given out, so that's statement 7. Suggest how the rate of photosynthesis in the potato leaf compares to the rate of photosynthesis in other leaves. It's going to be slower because it stayed yellow. Okay, so it stayed yellow, so it hadn't got to that point yet.